Hello guys, and welcome to Autodesk Revit beginners tutorials here on my channel. Now this tutorial is mainly for beginners who are interested to learn the basics of using this software to carry out engineering and architectural designs. Autodesk Revit is one of the best and sophisticated software, just like AutoCAD and ArchiCAD, which can be used for modeling of 2D and 3D engineering and architectural designs. Now when you launch Autodesk Revit for the first time, depending on your version, your screen or your canvas is going to look like this, having the model project with options of opening an existing drawing or starting a new drawing, and then having thumbnails of project which we have worked on. And below here you also have the families project, also giving you an option of starting or opening an existing drawing and then starting a new drawing, also with thumbnails of some sample architectural families, system families and structural families in Autodesk Revit. So after launching the software, you have an option of opening an existing drawing or starting a new drawing, or even starting a new drawing using any of these construction or architectural or structural templates, likewise with the family. So for instance, if we want to start a new model project, we can click on new, and then we have this windows pop up asking us to choose a template file which we prefer, and we can click down here to pick any of these template. For instance, we can click architectural template to start an architectural project. But before we start a new project, I'm going to open an existing drawing and make use of this to explain basically how the user interface of Autodesk Revit looks like. So to do that, I'm going to double click on this particular project which I have made in Autodesk Revit and use this particular project to explain how Autodesk Revit user interface looks like. So when you start a new project in Revit, or when you open an existing project in Revit, basically the user interface environment is going to look like this. So with the help of this project which I already made, I'm going to explain all the components that makes up the user interface of this very particular software. Now I'm going to switch over to the level 1, which is the floor plan, and then here is a floor plan of this very particular project. Now to explain the user interface of this software, we're going to start from the top here. At the top here we have what we call the title bar, and basically this holds the title of the project we are currently working on in Autodesk Revit. Now at the left side of this title bar we have the quick access toolbar. So this helps us to either save or open an existing drawing, or undo or redo any of the command. And then at the right side of this title bar we have the info bar, which we can be able to sign into Autodesk and then carry out some other informations. Now below this title bar we have the ribbon, and the ribbon here is made up of collections of different tabs such as the architecture, structure, and up to the modify tab. Now each of the tab is made of the collections of ribbons, made up of collections of panels, and each panel is a collections of tools which we can use in carrying out our drawings or designs in Autodesk Revit. Now below the ribbon here is what we call the option bar. Basically now it is looking blank, but if for instance we decide to pick the wall tool, and you can see that we have options that we can play around with this wall tool. So you have option of changing the location line either from wall center to core center, and other options as well. So from the options bar here, basically any tool we are working with at a point in time, it gives us an options of switching between different functions which that tool is used for. So this is the option bar. Now below this option bar we have a palette called the properties palette or the panel, and this basically displays informations of a tool we are currently working with. For instance, we have in the architecture here we have picked the wall tool, and you can see that we have here basic wall generic 200 millimeter square, which is the wall we just picked. And we can also click here to choose, different thickness of the wall which we want to use in this particular project. And if you go down, you can see that we have options of changing the location line. We also have options of changing the base constraint from level 1 to any of the levels. We also have the base offset and all information pertaining to this very particular tool which we picked in Autodesk Revit. Now below this also we have what we call the project browser. The project browser here helps us to access different views of our project or the designs we are carrying out in Autodesk Revit. So basically, the first we have the structural plans specifically for structural designs, and after that we have the floor plans, so we can access level 1, we can access level 2, we can access level 3, and then when we scroll down we have also the ceiling plans. We can access level 1 to level 4 of the ceiling plan. Likewise, we can also access the 3D views. For instance, if I click here, I can view this particular project in 3D. So this is a project which I made, and this is the 3D view of this very particular project. And also back to the properties browser, I can view different elevations. So if I click on the east, I can see the east elevation of this project. I can also see the north elevation, and likewise the south, the west, and so on. Then scrolling down again, we also have renderings. So here I can view renderings which I have made with this software, and then beyond that we have the legend, we have schedules and quantities, we have sheet families, and so on, which we shall consider later on in the course of this tutorial. So this is what the properties browser display in Autodesk Revit. Now back to the floor plan or level 1. And then here we have the main drawing window in Autodesk Revit, which we can be able to carry out our drawings in Autodesk. And on the main drawing windows here we have the elevation tags, both for the north, the south, east, and the west. So these are the elevations which we can be able to access or open from the properties bar here. Likewise, we can also create an elevation. We can add an elevation to this, and to do that we go to the view tab. Here we have an option for elevation. Click here and we click on elevation, and we can be able to place an elevation like this, and we escape, select the elevation, and we can modify this by rotating it. And also we can as well adjust the view of this elevation by dragging this line up to this level, and then also adjusting the view range. So when we are done with this, we can also double click to open the elevation. So basically, the elevation which we just created for this very project, we can see our project looking like this in Autodesk Revit. So here on the elevation in the properties browser, you can see elevation 1 and then -A. We can decide to rename this, or we can leave it as this. So this is how you can also add elevation tags to your drawing. So basically on the drawing windows here, you can carry out your drawings, and then you have the elevation tags also. Now after the elevation tags, we have the navigation panel. Now to explain the navigation panel properly, I'm going to change over to 3D window or 3D view. So on the 3D view here, we have the navigation panel, and we have the view cube. So on the view cube here, we can be able to switch, we can click and drag to rotate around from this side or from this side. We can choose to view from here, we can choose to view this side, we can choose to view from here, and we can also choose to view from the right, or we can choose to view from the top. We can also return to the home view using this home icon. And likewise, we have the navigation bar here. So on the 3D view, when we click on this navigation bar, we're going to have the navigation wheel. So here we have option to orbit. When we click on this orbit, we can orbit around and see our project. When we click on zoom, we can be able to zoom in and out of this project. We can also pan around the screen as we're working on this project. So this is basically the functions of the navigation. And also here we have customized zooming. We have zoom to in region, zoom out, zoom to fit, zoom out to fit, and all of that contained here. And over here we have the navigation panel, and then the scroll or the navigation wheel, and then we have the view cube over here, which all serve the purpose of navigating while we are making our drawings. And then below here we have the view control bar, which we can use to view our project in Autodesk Revit. And then we have the horizontal scroll bar, which can scroll left or right, and then we also have the vertical scroll bar, which you can scroll to the top or to the bottom. And we have different views. We can change the scale of what we are currently displaying. We can also change the detail level either to coarse or to medium. We can also change the visual display from wireframe, such as what we have here, or we can change to shaded, or we can change this to realistic, to have a realistic view of a project like this in AutoCAD. So this is basically what the view control tab does. You can control your views from the view control tab. Now below here is the status bar. So basically whatever you're doing in Autodesk Revit is going to be displayed on the status bar here. Now it should, in case you have any of these let's say properties bar or palette or project browser or even the view cube or any of these missing in your drawing, now you will go to the view tab on your ribbon, go to view tab, and over here you have the user interface, and from the user interface you have option you have this box which you can check either to display or to remove these properties from your user interface. For instance, if we uncheck the view cube and then return back, you could see that the view cube has disappeared from the drawing window. And if we go back and then check the view cube, we have the view cube added back again to our window. And again, if we click here and we uncheck the navigation bar, you could see that the navigation bar which was here has also disappeared. And going back again, checking this navigation bar, we have our navigation bar displayed back here. Likewise, we can turn off the project browser, and that is gone from here. We can then also turn it back on, and we can also turn off or turn on the properties. So the properties is gone from here. We can then turn it back on by clicking or checking that box. If in the process of drawing you have or you encounter any challenge, you couldn't find any of this palette or these windows, you can as well go to view tab in your ribbon and then go to user interface and then check look for any of this which is missing and make sure you have the box checked. So basically this is an introduction to the user interface of this very particular software. So a quick revision: this is the title, which was the title of the project. We have the quick access toolbar, we have the info bar, we have the ribbon having a collections of different tabs, and the tabs having different collections of panel, and each panel has different tools which you can make use of in your drawing. And then below the ribbon here is the option, which displays options of different tools you're using in Autodesk Revit. And then after that we have the properties, basically displaying the properties of objects or the tools which you are using in your design or in your drawing at a particular time. And then the project browser display or gives you options of changing from different view, from the floor plan view to the ceiling plan to the 3D views to the elevations, rendering, and every other views which you can access in your drawing while using Autodesk Revit. And then we have the main drawing window. And then when we switch to the floor plan, you can see that the main drawing window is where we draw our floor plan or we draw our designs or carry out our designs. And then on this we also have elevation tags both for the north, east, west, and the south. And after that we have the navigation. So going back to 3D view, we have the view cube, which we can use to view in 3D. We can use this to rotate to the left or to the right, and we also make use of the navigation wheel here to orbit, or we can also zoom in and out. We can also pan to move the screen to the left, to the right, or top or bottom as you so wish. And then we have the view control, which is just right below here. We can change the scale of our display, we can change the detail level from coarse to medium to fine. We can as well change the display from wireframe to hidden to shaded to realistic and so on. And then we have the navigation, the top and the bottom navigation. We have the horizontal navigation, which is we can use to navigate to the left or to the right. And then below here we have the status bar, which displays what is currently happening in Autodesk Revit. So this is an introduction to the user interface of Autodesk Revit. Now to proceed with showing you how to start a new project in Autodesk Revit, we're going to start a new project and see some of the basic settings which is needed for you when you're starting a new project with Autodesk Revit. Now, before we start a new project in Autodesk Revit, we also need to understand the user interface of Autodesk Revit when we are creating a family project. So basically what we have here was a model project, and now we need to know how the user interface of Autodesk Revit looks like when we are creating a family project. So I'm going to click on this close button to close the different views which we have opened so far, and then we're going to return back, and then open a families project. So click on no and I can close that. So basically this first user interface was for the model project. Now let's look at the user interface when we are creating a families project using this sample which we already have. So when we click on sample architecture family, we're going to wait for this to load, and this is a sample architecture family of a furniture that was created in the families project using Autodesk Revit. So basically you have the user interface looking almost the same. You have view cube also as in the model project, you have the properties, and you have the project browser. Basically they function the same just like in the model project. So also at the ribbon area here, you have the first one being the create tab. We have the insert, we have annotate, we have view, we have manage, and then at the top here we have the title of the family which we are creating at a particular point in time. Likewise, we have the quick access toolbar, we have the info bar here, and also we have the options bar. So basically here, whatever you have displayed in this or whatever you have displayed in the model project is the same thing with that of the families project. So when you understand how to work with the model project user interface, it's the same thing basically applied with the families project in Autodesk Revit. Now that we understand the user interface of the model project and then that of the families project, now let's see how we can start a new drawing in or start a new design in Autodesk Revit. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this to to close that family, and I want to start a new drawing or a new design in Autodesk Revit. And back to this open window, I'm going to click on new, and then from this window I have an option of choosing from different templates, and I intend to create an architectural design. So I'll click on architectural template and I'll go ahead, make sure on the create new here we have the project and not project template checked, and then go ahead and click on OK, and this will open a fresh working environment which we can start a new design or a new drawing with Autodesk Revit. Now when you're starting a new project in Autodesk Revit, there are some basics or fundamental settings which you are required to do before starting your drawing, and the first of them is your unit setting. And now to set your unit, you will go to the manage tab under the ribbon and click on manage, and over here you have this symbol and you have a display called project unit. So when you click on this, you have the project unit displayed. Alternatively, you can access that with the use of a shortcut key by typing UN on your keyboard. So you have this dialog box showing your project unit in Autodesk Revit pops up. So basically you have the common unit displayed first. So you can choose either to use the common or structural or heat, ventilation and air conditioning. You can use electrical, piping, or any of these, but basically we're going to keep the common units in use, and then we can change our settings from here. Now by default, Autodesk Revit's unit is set to millimeters, and we can click here to change either from millimeters to centimeters or to decimeters or any of this unit. And also we have an options of choosing the decimal places, so rounding of the decimal place either to 2 decimals, to 3 decimals, or to the nearest 1000 and so on. But for the purpose of this, I'm going to keep this at 0 decimal. We can also change the unit symbol, whether we want the unit symbol to be displayed alongside or we don't want it to be displayed alongside. And we have an option of suppressing trailing zeros. We also have an option of using digit grouping, and based on what you want, you can have this check or you can have this uncheck, and if you're satisfied with this, you can go ahead and click OK. And then for the area as well, you can click on this, change your area to square feet, square inches, square meter, square centimeter, and so on. And you have the same option either to increase the decimal place from 0 to 1 to 2, or even to the nearest 1000, nearest 100 or 10, and then also attaching the unit symbol or not, and then also suppress trailing zeros or even the unit digit grouping. So these are the basic settings which you can carry out or you can do in your unit setting. And majorly, or it is recommended that you make use of a uniform unit where you have, if your unit here is length here is set to millimeters, then your areas should be set to meter square and so on. So when you're done with the unit settings, you go ahead and click OK, and that is the first settings which you are required to do in Autodesk Revit. Now, after setting your units, the next thing to consider is the levels. So by default, Autodesk Revit opens with two levels, which is level 1 and level 2, and this can be renamed. You can right click on this and you have an option of renaming this level, but we're going to leave it at this. Now, assuming you're creating a story building and you need level 1 for the ground floor, level 2 for the first floor, and then you needed level 3 for your roof level or for whatever level. To do that, to add additional levels to that, we're going to click on this elevation. Double click on this elevation, and when we click on elevation, you could see that we have basically these two levels which we have in the plan. So we have level 1 at 0 level and level 2 at 4000 millimeters level, and we can adjust the height of this level by clicking on it. And first, it is locked, so we have to unlock this and then click on where we have the numbers. Let's say we are setting the level to 3000, and then we can press enter on a keyboard to activate the level or the change in the height of this level. Likewise, how do we create another level? Now, to create another level, the easiest way is right click on the canvas and you have this context menu, and move down you have an option for creating similar. So this will give you an option of creating a similar level, and from here we can trace up, click on this very particular point to have a start point, and then we can move towards the right and then click to have the end point there. So you could see that also we've added another level. So we now have level 1, level 2, level 3 in this very particular design. So we can as well change the height of this level as well, first by unlocking, and then you can double click and then change the distance. Let's say this should be 1000 or 3150 in height, and go ahead, press enter on the keyboard to accept the height of this level. So basically this is how you can add levels. So when we go back to the floor plan where we started initially, so you have 3 levels displayed now. We have level 1, we have level 2, we have level 3, and this is how you can create levels when you're starting your drawing in Autodesk Revit. Now, the next setting you can do in Autodesk Revit is the settings of the elevation. Now, by default, you have these 4 elevation tags displayed when you're starting your drawing, but for any reasons you want to include a new elevation tag, you can easily do that by going to view on the view tab in the ribbon area, and here you have the elevation. So you can click on elevation and you can click anywhere to have the elevation symbol placed, and you can click on it. You can click on this elevation and then you can rotate. You can also increase the view, from this very particular direction. So when you needed to have additional views or additional elevation tags in your designs, you can as well do that by going to the view tab under the ribbon and then click to add elevations. Now when we scroll down under the property bar, initially we are having east, north, south and west elevation, and this elevation which was just created, you can see it having elevation 1A as the tag or as the title of this very particular elevation. We can select this particular elevation and have it deleted from our project. Go ahead and click on OK, and you can see from the properties bar that that elevation has as well been deleted from our project. So that is the settings for elevations. The next thing to consider is your views. So when you're working in Autodesk Revit, most of the times you can encounter a challenge of having some views missing in your drawing. How do you go about it? Now, sometimes you could find out that the properties file or palette is not displayed, or the project browser is not displayed, or even your navigation bar or even your status bar or the view control or the status bar is not displayed. To be able to set that or to be able to display any of the missing windows, you can go to view tab again under the ribbon, and over here you have the user interface and you have options of displaying any of these items or any of these windows that are missing. For instance, if I uncheck this, you could see that the project browser is gone, and if I go back and then check this, you can see that our project browser is back. So these are some basic settings or some check-ins which you are to check when you're carrying out drawings or when you're starting a new project with Autodesk Revit. Now the last thing to check is your snap settings. the snap settings are very important in your drawing, which helps you make sure that your drawings are very accurate. Now to check the snap settings, again you go to the ribbon and click on the manage tab, and over here close to the material icon you have a smaller icon like that of a magnet, and that is named snaps. You can click on this and make sure that all the snap settings are checked on. We have endpoint, we have midpoint, we have nearest, and all of that here. Make sure they are all checked, and then you go ahead and click on OK. Now let's see how the snap settings work. For instance, if we go to architecture tab and we click on, say we want to create a floor, when we select architectural floor, and we can select any of these options and then click to create a floor. And if we now decide to draw another line from this point, and with the help of the snap settings, you could see that we could be able to target the endpoint of this very particular rectangle. We can also target the midpoint, so that is indicated with a rectangle, so this is the midpoint. We can also target the angles, so you have angles here at different angles. You can also target the extension lines when you have it completely vertical or when you have it horizontal. So with the help of this dashed line, you can also get a good drawing when you're using Autodesk Revit. So all this is achieved with the use of the snap settings, and that is why it is important to also make sure that that is set before you can start your project or your drawing in Autodesk Revit. Alright, so now that we have understood the user interface of Autodesk Revit and also the basic settings which we are required to do when we are carrying out a new project, let's see how we can start a simple building project in Autodesk Revit. Now first, to start a building project, we're going to activate or select the wall tool from the architectural tab here in the ribbon area. And when we select the wall tool, we have from this properties window, we can change the thickness of the wall. Let's say we are going with that of 250 millimeters in thickness, and we also have option of changing the location line either from wall center line or to core center line. We're going to explore all of this in the course of this tutorial. And should in case we don't want to make use of this 250 millimeters, we have this option, option where we have the edit type, which can enable us to change or have our own customized thickness and then add materials and carry out other things which we want to do with this very particular one. So basically we're going to work with this, and for now we have on the options bar here, we want to maintain offset of 0, and we want to maintain a chain wall, and we're not drawing a circular wall, so the radius here will be unchecked. And then for the height, default height is set to 8,000, and as you can see from the project browser, the level we are currently working on is level 1, and our walls is going to be the base constraint or the base level is set to level 1, and then the height of this wall is set to 8,000 and is unconstrained. Now if we want to set the height of this level to, the height of this wall to any of this level, say level 2 or level 3, we can click here and change the constraint from level 1 to level 2 or level 3, and we can also do that from this very particular properties browser or properties window. So this is also set. We can set this to level 2 at this point. Now that we have that selected, we can go ahead and click to create our wall like this in Autodesk Revit. So when you click, you can see that the center line or the location line is at the middle of this very particular wall. So we click to create a horizontal wall, and we can come down this way to create a vertical wall like this, and the center line is still at the center of the wall. And immediately we click this, you can see that over here the walls, the vertical and the horizontal walls are perfectly joined together, just like that. So when we keep drawing like this, our walls, we can draw as many walls as we can. Now this is set to chain, so we can draw the walls continuously. Assuming that we uncheck the chain, we're going to draw only this wall, and after that you can see that the wall command has been deactivated. And if you want to draw a wall again, you go back or you click on a new position to start your wall. So we're going to have the chain set back, and we're going to click at another point or at a different point to draw our walls just like this. Now another thing to understand with this again is the use of the location line in your drawing. So here we have option to change the location line of the wall. So basically, or initially we were working with the wall center line, we can decide to use the core center line. So when we have that selected and we click to draw our walls, we can click, and you can also see that also in this case the location line is at the center of the wall. So the core center line and the wall center line are somehow similar, but in the case where we have a composite wall, this is going to function differently. So basically we have a simple wall, and so the location line for the for this wall, both for the wall center line and core center line, are the same. Now if we go ahead again and change the location line from core center line to finish face exterior, and we can then draw, and you can see that this center line has moved from the center of the wall to the top. So you can see if you keep drawing like this, now the location line has changed. So if you draw in a clockwise pattern like this, the location line is going to be basically at the inside of this very particular drawing, just like this. We can as well also change the location line from finished face exterior to finished face interior. And then again, when we try to draw these walls, you can see that the level or the position of the center line has moved from the top to the bottom, and as we keep drawing, we go up. You can also see that the location line also changed from the left to the right, and so on. Again, we can also change from finished face exterior to finish to core face interior. Now to understand these two, core face interior and then core face exterior, we're going to change from simple wall, and we're going to change the the type of wall which we are creating from a simple wall to a composite wall. So we have here a stacked wall in Autodesk Revit, and when we click on this, we can create a composite wall in Autodesk Revit. So we can click, and you can see that we have this wall created like this. Now to understand this very well, we're going to change the visual display from what we have as coarse to at least fine, and we're going to change this also to a realistic view. So if I zoom, you can see that this is a composite wall having the core wall itself and the finished face. So again, let's go ahead and change the location line from core exterior, and then let's start a new wall. So you can see that when we try to draw the walls, the location line is at the exterior of this very particular composite wall. So this is where it is located. And if we now go ahead and then change this to core face interior, and we try to create a wall again, you can see that the location line is at the exterior of the core finished face of this very particular wall. So this is how you can make use of this location line when you're creating a wall in Autodesk Revit. So now that we understand how to make use of the location line, let's see how we can create a simple building in Autodesk Revit. So we're going to go ahead and select all of these drawings or all of the walls we've created and have them deleted. And again, we're going to go back to Architecture tab and click on Walls and change our walls from what we have initially to a basic wall of let's have a basic wall of say 300 generic 300 millimeters thickness. So again, we're going to change from from the core face interior to a wall center line, which is basic for your drawing. And make sure that the plan here is set to level 1. We can go ahead, create a simple wall like this, and we just click and drag to create our walls like this. Now also note that when you activate the wall command, you have an option of drawing from the draw panel here. We can create our walls just as a single line, or we can create our wall as in a rectangular form, just like this. We can also create our walls either as a polygon in this form. So we can also create our walls either as another polygon with inscribed circle like this. You can also create a circular wall just like this. And in the case of a line or creating the wall in a line form, we can create a wall like this, And we can also use arc to create our walls just like this, and then we can define the radius like this. We can also use spline just like this, and then we draw our walls, or use this spline. We can draw our walls like this and our walls looking like this. So these are the different options which we can use to draw our walls looking differently from the draw panel here under the ribbon. So now that we have understand how to carry out different drawings of the wall with this draw panel, let's see how we can create a simple building with this wall tool. We're going to go ahead, select and click and drag to select all of these walls which we created and delete it. However, we can see that our elevation tag is also selected, so in the course of deleting this, we are going to delete the tags as well. So we go over to the filter here, so go ahead and uncheck the elevations, uncheck the views, and leave only the walls, and then we can click on OK. So you can see that only the walls which we created are selected. We can go ahead and then delete these walls from our drawing or from the drawing environment. Again, let's pick this wall and see how we can create a simple building. So we can click and drag to create a building like this. So we can click delete this, go ahead, pick the wall tool, and we can click here to create a building or a wall like this. We can hold the shift key to make sure that our drawing is orthogonal, so we can draw either horizontally or vertically without being inclined. So we can make use of the shift key to do that, and then we can use polar tracking or snap settings to track the end of this wall, and then we can finish our walls like this. Again, we can make use of this option to change if you want a specific dimension. Just click on this, go ahead, let's say this is going to be 12,000, and we go ahead and press enter on the keyboard, and we can have a specific measurement or dimension of this wall as 4,000. If you want to measure this, we can go over to the modify tab, and we have this option for measurement, and we pick that. So we can click here and we can click here, and you can see that this wall is 12,000 millimeter in length. So that is how we can create our basic wall in Autodesk Revit. Now to view, or we can change the view, because this is created in the floor plan view. We can change the view from 2D to 3D by clicking on the view tab, and here we have the 3D view. So we click on 3D view, default 3D view, and this is our wall in 3D view. We can also access that view from the project browser by clicking here and click on 3D view, so we can see our drawing in 3D views like this. So with the help of this, we can see our drawing. Again, we can make adjustment to these walls by clicking on the walls. We can either increase the height of the wall from here, or we can move the wall by extending it, or we can edit the profile by clicking on edit profile, and then we can select this very particular line that makes up the wall, and let's say we're going to add an arc to this. So we click here and create an arc, and we go ahead and select this and have it deleted. So when you're done with this, you have an option either to cancel or to approve the creation of the wall. Then we go ahead, approve, and you can see that this wall, instead of being straight at the top, is having an arc shape. So this is how you can be able to manipulate or work around with the wall command in Revit. Now I'm going to undo all of this from the quick access toolbar. So I can undo this from the quick access toolbar and go ahead and undo, or I can as well use Ctrl Z on the keyboard to undo all that I have done on this very particular one. Now that we've been able to add a wall, let's go back to our level 1 and see how we can add a floor. So go to architecture tab on the ribbon, and then here we have the floor command. So click on this drop down, and we have an option to create architectural wall. So I'm going to click on this, and once this is open, also from the properties palette here, we can see that this is having information concerning the floor, which we're about to create in Autodesk Revit. And then over here on the ribbon, we have the modify / create floor boundary tab open. So we are first required to define the boundary of this floor, and we can do that by creating or picking a line, drawing a line. we can draw a line around this particular wall which we created, or alternatively we can undo this, and then we can decide to pick or draw a rectangular wall like this for the floor. We can draw a rectangle, but since this shape is not a single shape, is a composite shape, we cannot make use of this. Other options also is we can pick lines or we can pick walls. So I'm going to make use of pick walls or pick lines, any of these. So let's go with pick walls so that we can pick all the walls here to create the floor, or to create the boundary for this very particular floor. So I'm going to pick this wall. I'm going to go ahead and pick this wall, and pick all the walls like this. And when I'm done with that, I'm satisfied with the boundary, I can click here to approve, and you can see that this floor has been created and it is shaded with this sky blue color. Again, go ahead, we can access this view in 3D by double clicking, and you can see that this wall is created in Revit. Now after adding our floor, the next thing we can add to this design, or to this very particular building design, is to add windows. So go over to the architecture tab under the ribbon, and we can select door or window. So let's say we are adding the door first, and also on the properties window here we have all that is concerning the door. So we can click on this drop down to pick any door of our size. I'm going to work with the default door that is available, and I can place a door like this in Revit. When I'm satisfied, also I can go back to the architecture tab and pick the window, and likewise I can also place a window at any position of my choice. And then after that, I can add other components. Say for instance, I want to place a component, a site component. I'll go to place a component, and then I have furniture component here. This is a furniture component that is available. I can then place a furniture component. This happens to be a table. And in case you have some components that are not present here, we can go to insert on this where we have insert tab under the ribbon, and then we have option to load family. So these are some Autodesk files which we have already downloaded, so we can load them from wherever it is being saved to our drawing. So we have, these are different site components, door components, which we can load and make use of in our drawings. So when you want to make use of these, select them and go ahead and click on open, and you can as well add them to your project or to your designs. So this is how you can add the doors, windows. And the next thing we want to do now is to see how we can add a roof to this very particular floor plan design, simple floor plan design in Autodesk Revit. But before that, let's see how we can navigate. So let's use the navigation wheel, and we can orbit like this to see our drawing in 3D. And let's change the visual style from just wireframe to, let it be realistic. And on a realistic view, we see that our floor plan is looking like this. So again, we can make use of the navigation wheel and orbit, and we can see our drawing looking like this. We can zoom, and then we can pan, and so on. And this is how it looks like. Again, let's return to home view. So I'm not minding the fact that this house is looking like this, but basically this is how you go about drawing a plan in Autodesk Revit. Now let's see how we can add a roof to this very particular plan. So we're going to go ahead and return to level 1 floor plan, and this is our plan in 2D mode, and we can change the detail level or the visual style to hidden. So we have our floor plan looking like this, and this door was not properly placed, so we are supposed to move this door to go inside, and this looks more better. And then after that, we want to create our roof on top of this very particular wall. So we can go ahead again and click on architecture tab on this ribbon, and then we have an option to create roof here. So we have an option to create roof by footprint or by extrusion, by face, and there are other options as well. But for the purpose of this, we're going to choose creating roof by footprint, and immediately we do that, we'll be prompted to select the work plane. So you have created the roof on the lowest level. Would you like to move it to level 2? So it is recommended that your roof should be at the level that is above that of the walls itself. So I'm going to choose level 2 to be the level at which I want my roof to be placed. So I'm going to go ahead and click on yes, and then that is going to activate the modify slash roof creation footprint in modify slash create roof footprint in Autodesk Revit. And you can see that also from the project browser here, from the properties panel here, we also have information pertaining to basic roof, generic roof of 300mm thickness. So we can create the boundaries of the roof by either drawing lines or by drawing a rectangle or by picking walls, just like we did in the case of the floor. And for the purpose of this, I'm going to choose picking lines instead of drawing lines. So I'm going to pick this line, I'm going to pick this line, and I'm going to pick this line, just like this. Now we've been able to pick these lines, and you can see that there are smaller rectangles attached to these lines, and over here you have 30 degrees. So these rectangles are defining the pitch of this very particular roof, and you can make changes to that from your options here. So you have on the options bar here, you have define slope. So if we have this check, you're going to see all these rectangles, but if you uncheck this, you can see that all the rectangles will not be formed. So let's go ahead and select all of this. Go ahead and then select all of these lines and have it deleted, and then again we're going to select pick line, and for the define slope this will be unchecked. And as we go ahead picking the line, you can see that those rectangles are no longer displayed because we've unchecked the define slope. So our roof basically is going to be a flat roof. But if we now go ahead and define slope, we can then have a hip road or whichever type of road we intend to create. So again, go ahead, pick lines, and we're going to define the slope here. And in most cases we want to have a roof that has an eave, so maybe about an eave of 500 millimeters from the edge of the wall. So let's define an offset of 500, and we can go ahead and pick our line. So you can see that the lines here are they are not exactly at the position of the wall. If I zoom, you can see that they are not exactly at the position of the wall. They are rather about 500 millimeters from the edge of that wall. So we can go ahead again, pick round, and make sure that we pick round and then create our roof just like this. Now when you're able to pick all the lines and you're satisfied with what you have, you can go ahead and click on this green to accept whatever you've been able to the roof you've been able to create. So we can again go ahead, go to view, and then view our roof in 3D. So and now this is a very good prompt in Autodesk Revit. We have been working on this project and we have not saved this project, and this is prompting us to save the project so that we cannot lose this project in case of anything. So we're going to go ahead and save the project, and we can choose a location where we want to save this project, and then we can name this project, let's say building project. And AutoCAD Revit files are always saved with .rvt. So all AutoCAD Revit except that of the families are saved with the file extension of .rvt, and we can go ahead and click on save, and now we have our drawings or our design saved, and we can then see this design in 3D. So this is how our design is going to look like in 3D. We can orbit and see how our roof and all our designs look like in 3D. Now another thing you should note is we can be able to change the materials of this component, either the walls, either the roof, either the floors, from the materials on the properties panel. For instance, let's select this wall and we want to change the material. So we go to edit type on the properties palette, and we have an option here to edit, and here we have structure. We can then change the material of this. So click on this and wait for it to load, and then I can scroll down from here and choose any material of my choice. Let's say I want to make use of this, let's say this door frame, and go ahead and click on OK, and that's going to apply the material to this very particular wall. So you can see that our walls here are now looking different in color from the ash color which we have initially. So that's how you can also apply materials to any of your designs or any of the elements which you are drawing in Autodesk Revit. Now we are done with the modeling of this building in Autodesk Revit, and we can return back to level 1. So on the level 1, which is the floor plan, basically our building is going to look like this, and on level 2 we have the roof plan, and the roof plan is somehow not completely seen, but we can make adjustment by going to the properties palette, and here we have the view range. We can edit the view range from here and then change the view depth here to, let's say, about 8,000, and then go ahead and apply, and then change the cut plane here to also 8,000. Go ahead and apply and click on OK. So you can now see this roof plan looking properly like this. So that was because of the view range. Now we can see our plan for level 1 and level 2. So level 1 is floor plan, level 2 is our roof plan. We can also see our building design in 3D, and one last thing we can create from here is a section. So as we want a section of this building, on the view tab here, and we click on view tab, we have this option for section. So we click on section and we can define a section like this. We can either change, and we have the view, this section view pointing at this direction, showing that the section line is going to display here, and we can change the direction from this top side to the bottom part. And when we're done with that, we can double click and on this view to open the section of this drawing. So that is basically, this is how the view of this drawing is going to look like in section. So we can change this also to realistic, and you can see that our section view is going to look like this. Now that we understand the basics of Autodesk Revit, let's see how we can change the visual display and then render our floor plan in Autodesk Revit. So again, we're going to go back to 3D view. So go to the view tab and click on 3D view, and we're going to set this to home view, and we can zoom out, and let's say we change the view to this side, and we have this view like this, and I want this view like this, or let's return back to home view, and we have our view like this, and our materials have been applied. Okay, then we can save our drawings by click on this application menu, and we can save this drawing which is already saved, or we can also click on the application menu and save as if we make some changes and choose any of the options. Now that we've saved our drawings and we want to render this drawing in Autodesk Revit, we can change our display to realistic and also make sure that the detail level is set to fine, and then you have this icon, show rendering dialog box. We can click on this, and this is going to bring out the rendering dialog box, or we can also access that from the view tab here on the ribbon. So here on the view tab, we'll click on render, and that is going to bring out the render dialog box, and then you can make some settings here and then go ahead and click on render and wait for it to render your project. And when it is done rendering, you can go ahead and click to close the render window, and then that is how you can work with Autodesk Revit. I hope you enjoyed this beginner's tutorial in Autodesk Revit. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video to your friends if you find it helpful. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.